Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Space Battles, written by _sky__. Interstellar warfare is a serious matter, requiring gigantic amounts of resources and their careful deployment. It starts with extracting a vast quantity of raw materials, followed by the delivery to industrial centers, then filtering them into arrays of advanced alloys, after which you can finally begin to construct your armada. But yet, all of that effort is for nothing if you do not know how to optimize the deployment of your ships prior to the battle. Many galactic powers have fallen when relying on sheer industrial power to win them the day. For any confrontations on such a scale are bound to be inescapably destructive. Once your armada suffers a crippling defeat, all of your industry is open to an all-out attack. As in space, there is no such thing as static defenses which could preserve your industry. Thus, it is no wonder many modern military doctrines strongly emphasize optimizing the ship's deployment. Investing everything in one decisive battle, there is simply no way around it. When trying to optimize your formations, the problem is that your AIs are missing crucial data on the enemy's weaponry. This makes keeping military ship designs secret even more crucial than it would seem on a first glance. Therefore, it was not unexpected that the Eternal Empire decided to challenge the Terran Union once they managed to get their hands on those exact files. It was an astronomical stroke of luck when one of their AIs was able to break into a protected human cyberspace. Such information, coupled with data collected from interstellar spy satellites, made the Emperor and his admirals extremely confident in the outcome of the upcoming war. As they preferred to strike when they had a clear advantage, they attacked immediately. The Empire's armada gathered and pushed forward, traveling directly towards the industrial heartland of the Terran Union. No official declaration of war was issued, as it made no sense to warn your target any sooner than necessary. As predicted, the humans quickly figured out what was going on, and rushed to gather all of their forces in one place to oppose the invasion. Everything was as the Eternal Emperor expected. This confrontation was to be decided in a single, decisive battle, as had every war before it. And they held the decisive edge. Upon finally arriving in front of what was undoubtedly the industrial hub of Terran Union, hundreds of trillions of best mankind's military assets waited for them. Their numbers were still growing, their newly built ships constantly arriving from nearby industrial centers. When two vast civilizations such as these face off, the numbers involved are nothing if not mind-boggling. Entire gas giants were quickly mined to supply their war machines. The mass of the opposing fleets could easily exceed that of nearby stars. But the Emperor was not worried. A veteran of thousands of stellar wars, he had conquered untold races and subdued even the most warlike hive minds. Now these Terrans currently had nothing which he did not know about. Thus, he could perfectly optimize the deployment of his fleet, but he was not so foolish to underestimate his enemy. So all the data was rechecked multiple times. To his utter satisfaction, everything matched the intelligence the AIs had gathered. The designs of the enemy frontline ships, their long-range stellar artillery, and their carriers were all inside the expected parameters. The Emperor's own armada presented a perfect counterforce. The victory was soon to be his. As it was accustomed, the Emperor's armada deployed into 4 lines of battle. The first battle line consisted of disposable frontline ships, numerous, agile, and durable, but not heavy with firepower. The second battle line comprised long-range stellar artillery. They were fragile, but capable of dishing out unsustainable amounts of damage. Following the second line was the third battle line of carriers and their escort drones. Their final battle line had the Emperor's gigantic flagship, which stored the main artillery AI required to control the armada and his elite escort, where quality was everything. The Terrans predictably mimicked their formation, as there simply wasn't much alternative. In space, there is no such thing as stealth or terrain, thus there is no place for ingenious tactics, only straightforward confrontation. While the two fleets were still deploying, an array of unknown ships jumped close to the human line. designs that had never been seen before. At first, their numbers did not seem significant, but they kept pouring in an unending stream, and they were positioning themselves behind the Terran's fourth line.
"What is that?"
The Eternal Emperor spoke, his tone betraying his surprise. The only response he got from his admirals was unidentified vessels.
"What type? What kind of armament?"
The Emperor demanded to know. Humbly, his underlings and their AIs focused a majority of their senses on the ever-growing group of strange ships parked behind the lost human lives.
"My ruler,"
one of the officers spoke up, his words filled with confusion.
"Almost all of the ships have a significant array of armaments, some of which are totally useless except in close quarters. But something like that can't realistically be used in an interstellar combat where ships fire at each other from tremendous distances."
The entire bridge was silent for quite some time, with everyone trying to verify the data. Another officer then spoke.
"My ruler, some of those ships are heavily infested by biologicals. Do they require a crew to operate?"
The notion of a combat crew was an ancient one. All known military vessels used AIs. Any crew was only present on a flagship, and even that was only a few dozen individuals from fleets numbering trillions of ships. One officer was going to propose that the new ships might be some civilians desperately drafted into the service, due to the seriousness of the situation. This was nothing more than Terrans truly throwing everything they had into this. But sadly, the theory the officer proposed could not explain why the complex sensor analysis indicated that all of the incoming ships had vast, fully integrated weapon systems. There ever since the ships were first constructed. That was not something which you'd expect from ordinary, hurriedly retrofitted civilian vessels.
"Continue scanning, focus AIs on them,"
the Emperor ordered. Just then, a gigantic ship appeared from the hyperspace and joined the growing collection of unidentified Terran ships.
"What is that, a moon?"
wondered an admiral. Gigantic ships were unseen in interstellar warfare and deemed to be resource inefficient, as they presented too large a target.
"Negative, that is no moon,"
the AI replied, its voice absent of any emotion, as the armada of untold numbers of white, knife-shaped ships also jumped from the hyperspace, right behind the moon-sized vessel.
"Why are they using hyperspace? Such methods of FTL is inferior and energy inefficient. Which civilization would waste resources like that?"
the Emperor observed. Galactic powers like the Eternal Empire and the Terran Union typically had an array of technologies at their disposal when it came to FTL systems. But everyone always opted for the reliability and small energy requirements of wormholes when it came to interstellar warfare. Why somebody would use hyperspace was beyond him.
"My ruler, the number of those unidentified ships is skyrocketing. If they continue arriving like this, they will form an entire new fifth battle line for the Terran Union."
This was an unsettling thought indeed. There were too many unknown variables appearing too quickly for anyone's taste, especially the Emperor's. Insecurity slowly finding its way to his subconscious.
"Give me an additional scans. Find out what the purpose of those ships is. Some form of reserve militia, maybe?"
Almost instantly, the answer came in the form of a gigantic and straightforward no. There was no doubt that those ships were built with anything but warfare in mind. But many of them were not energy efficient. Some were even equipped with high-quality but over-expensive shield generators or risky-to-use plasma cannons. Definitely not something any militia would ever be able to get its hands on.
"My ruler, I have a hypothesis."
One of the more experienced admirals rushed to speak.
"What we see there might be an unsuccessful military prototypes. The ships which did not pass real space tests or energy requirements set by the Admiralty, but were deemed unworthy for recycling, left behind until now."
The Eternal Emperor stared at the face of his faithful servant, desperately trying to agree with him. But the common sense did not allow him to do so.
"Billions of them, soon to be trillions, enough to form an entire fifth battle line," the Emperor replied. "Even the humans are not that wasteful, and they are known for their inefficiency."
The Emperor had barely finished his thoughts when sensors started indicating the arrival of additional Terran forces.
"What now? What is happening?"
The AI replied again with the same unemotional voice as always.
Significant numbers of enemy contacts detected approaching us at speeds of up to Warp 10.
Warp 10? One of the admirals asked, his voice emanating fear. Warp FTL engines? Those are ancient technology. No way any military or civilian ship would have used such means of propulsion.
The AI continued. The data has been verified countless times already. Enemy indeed is to deploy them in less than an hour. I advise a tactical retreat.
Retreat! Retreat! The admirals felt their body tremble after hearing such a proposition. Why retreat? The Emperor wished to know. Have the odds turned so much against us? Surely we have some countermeasures against warp-capable ships. They can be effectively used as kamikazes, but our drones should...
However, the AI interrupted the Emperor. Negative. My ruler, all detected enemy warp-capable ships are equipped with photon torpedoes. They would fry the sensors on our drones before they would have any chance to engage. The enemy has fully countered our third battle line.
Never in its history was the Eternal Empire forced to retreat. But now it seemed that they were left with no choice. Their safest course of action was obviously to listen to the hyper-intelligent AI. However, the Emperor could not force himself to utter the words, but instead just gestured with his arm. There was all the permission the AI needed to activate the emergency wormhole and start the tactical withdrawal. Both carefully and skillfully, all the battle lines moved back into a safety of their defensive formation. There would be no battle today. At the same time, on the Terran flagship,
Vice Admiral, the Eternal Empire's armada seems to be retreating.
Ha! Impossible! It must be some sort of ruse. Everyone hold your positions.
Negative, sir. There is no way that they would spend so much energy on opening a gigantic wormhole. Look at the readings.
The data seen on the screen was undeniable, and as soon as it was reconfirmed by the innumerable AIs, for a few minutes, the silence was omnipresent on the bridge of the Terran flagship. In bewilderment, they continued observing the armada, which was so superior to their own, retreat in full defensive formation. Just as the first of the enemy ships began entering the wormhole, a sudden message echoed over the open channel. The Star Wars fans are reporting our ships have formed up behind the fourth battle line as instructed, requesting further instructions on what to do with the Death Star. Shall we open fire? Maybe we get a lucky hit on their flagship. The Vice Admiral suddenly shook from the surreal experience that he was just witnessing. Negative. I repeat, negative. Wait for the Star Trek fans and their ships too. They should be here in less than an hour.
Apologies, sir, but their ships all have warp engines. They will not arrive in time.
Listen to me, you Star Wars fanboy. I hear you trying to second-guess my order again in any way, and I'll see you court-martialed, regardless of all the ships your fandom had brought here today. Is that clear?
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry. Will not happen again.
I hope so, you pricking civilian. The Vice Admiral answered in a determinant tone of voice. Just then, an array of sparkling lights echoed all over the Ethereal Empire's armada. In mere seconds, a chaotic battle erupted as the unknown ships emerged directly inside the Emperor's formation, engaging them at close quarters, ship-and-ship combat, something the Eternal Empire was obviously totally unprepared for. All over every single open channel, an array of fanatical war cries could be heard. For Holy Terror and the Golden Throne, there is only one Emperor, and he is our shield and protector. Purge the Xenos! May God, Emperor, protect. Space Marines prepare to board enemy flagships. Only in death does duty end. The Vice Admiral just looked back at his officers, both shocked and delighted at the same time. All those? Yes, sir, one of the officers replied before the Vice Admiral had a chance to finish his thought. The Warhammer 40,000 fans are here. May God, Emperor, protect us all. But I thought they weren't going to make it in time. You never know with warp currents, sir. You just never know. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.